For all 16 years of my life, I've been privileged to call this spectacular place, Logan, Utah, my home. All of my fondest childhood memories were made within these mountains. Springtime was marked with canoeing expeditions in nearby marshes. Summertime was spent stalking through tall grasses in the pursuit of frogs and snakes. In the autumn, we raked mountains of leaves. My childhood spent outdoors instilled in me a deep passion for environmental protection. But while Logan was a paradise for me in spring, summer, and fall, winter was another story. During the cold months, the mountains that I loved so much trapped in vehicle and agriculture emissions, ranking my community among the top 10 worst cities in the country for short-term air pollution. Fortunately, Logan is home to Utah State University, whose researchers provide extensive data on the air pollution problem. However, despite this excellent data, progress to clean our air remains slow. I've always wondered, even when we hold all the facts in our hands, why do we still struggle to use that information to build effective change in our communities? As I grew up, I saw that this gap between knowledge and action wasn't unique to my community, but is a problem worldwide. We have more data about our environment and the threats we pose to it than ever before. Data tells us that we are releasing carbon into our atmosphere at staggering rates. Data tells us that we are rapidly destroying our forests. Data tells us that as our population rises, so does the loss of biodiversity. Despite this wealth of data, action to protect our environment lags far behind. So here's the big question. Are bar graphs and data sets sufficient at inspiring action? Or is something missing? This past December, my passion for environmental protection led me to attend the International Climate Summit in Paris, France, as a junior news correspondent. I realized that even here, at the biggest global climate conference in history, a gap between knowledge and action was evident. The world's greatest scientific minds and political leaders have gathered at the summit for over 20 years, and while some breakthroughs have been achieved, progress as a whole feels painfully slow. In the streets of Paris, you could feel the frustration of the public like electricity in the air. As this French protester stated, our climate is in a state of emergency. I had hoped to attend conference meetings. However, due to the recent terrorist attacks, my access was limited. I called home and explained my frustration to my dad. As an ordinary kid, I felt powerless to be part of the solution. My dad changed my perspective. He said, "Piper, while you can't access the high-level conference meetings, you have a unique opportunity to capture the stories of people from all over the world. You may be surprised what you discover." So I set to work, armed with my cheap camera, a borrowed tripod, and most importantly, a newfound audacity to approach strangers. My interview questions were simple. How do environmental threats affect your life? And what unique insights do you have on how to better protect our environment? Through these questions, I quickly discovered that phenomenal environmental stewards can be found in the most ordinary of places. I interviewed people in the streets of Paris, on the elevator, and even in the laundry room of my hostel. As it turns out, noisy washing machines are very distracting during interviews. By the end of my project, the stories I gathered spanned 6 continents, including the countries of Peru, Togo, Sudan, Indonesia, Sweden, Germany, and Australia, just to name a few. The story of Isabel and Melati Wijsen, 2 sisters from Bali, was particularly transformative for me. When the girls were only 10 and 12 years old, they were saddened to witness the beautiful beaches and forests of their home grow littered with plastic bags. They feared that Bali would be transformed from an island of paradise to an island of garbage. In response, the sisters staged an extensive campaign to address the plastic problem with their peers, gaining international attention. But they didn't stop there. In their desperation for change, Isabel and Malati went on a food strike to call attention to the problem. At last, the sisters' relentless dedication convinced the governor to vow that Bali will be plastic bag-free by 2018. Here is Malati and her friend Leander sharing their story.
Well, throughout the 3 years of bioplastic bags, we have really learned and we see the power the youth has when we lead the way. Isabel and I were only 10 and 12 years old when we started this. We never had a business plan, we never had a strategy, nor any hidden agendas. We just had the idea in front of us and a group of friends working with us. And all we wanted to do was stop those plastic bags from wrapping and suffocating our beautiful home. We really believe that we have a boundless energy. This youth has a boundless energy and a motivation to be the change the world needs.
I had thought I was too young to be an environmental change maker. And yet, these students had changed the environmental policy of an entire country. I now realize that I was a part of a global community where the combined efforts of ordinary people create extraordinary change. Returning to Logan, I was unsure if my community would be as moved by these stories as I was, but it quickly became evident that the power of stories was infectious. I was asked to share at churches, schools, community events, and charity organizations. I shared on Utah Public Radio, my local news stations, as well as regional and national climate conferences. These stories of ordinary people demonstrating resilience and initiative created a sense of urgency and capacity to act. As climate psychologist Adam Corner once said, it is human stories, not carbon targets, that capture people's attention. While data is essential to educate us, it often fails to inspire action. Data primarily appeals to reason. In order to truly engage someone, you must appeal to both reason and emotion. That's where stories come in. Stories give a human face to data, translating it into a common vernacular that people can understand and emotionally connect to. What's more, the tactic of exclusively using frightening data to incite change can even be counterproductive. For instance, Stephen Colbert once said, after reading the Obama administration's gloomy 800-page climate assessment, he said, "It is so terrifying, it left a carbon footprint in my pants." Yikes. Recognizing the power of stories, I set out to use them to inspire my city to clean up our air. My beloved environmental club and I collaborated with university personnel and city officials to create a clean air resolution. When we presented it to our city council, we shared personal stories of how the pollution affects our lives as teenagers. My friend Elizabeth is a babysitter who explained that as the pollution worsened, she was concerned to take children outside. My friend Daniel runs cross country and explained that he couldn't run outside in the winter because the pollution hurt his lungs and made him cough. My friend Cece explained that her sister's asthma worsened as the pollution increased. We thought we would be lucky to get a 3-2 decision in favor of our resolution, but after sharing our stories, our resolution passed unanimously. Through a combination of data and stories, we created meaningful change. Now, this year, we are working to pass clean air resolutions in cities around the state. Now I have hope that the winter skies of my hometown can be as clear as those in spring, summer, and fall. Stories not only have the capacity to move the public to action, but they can also create change on Capitol Hill. This past June, I joined 800 citizen lobbyists in Washington, D.C. to speak with my members of Congress about environmental protection. Our stories, combined with data, were able to convince my Democratic and Republican Congress members to join forces in a bipartisan climate caucus. Clearly, stories are capable of the miraculous. After experiencing the success of stories within my environmental work, I had to wonder, can stories influence change elsewhere? Researchers and social scientists are now finding that we are better moved by stories than logic and reason. For instance, when researcher George Lowenstein, a professor at Carnegie Mellon, asked subjects to donate money to alleviate hunger, he found that one specific story of an undernourished child, Rokia from Mali, elicited more donations from subjects than providing general statistics about the 21 million people in Africa experiencing hunger. As a 16-year-old, sometimes I feel cynical about the future of our planet. But when that happens, I remind myself of the amazing stories I have heard, from changemakers in Bali to extraordinary people in my own community. And you know what? It fills me with hope. So I'd like to leave you with this. Think of causes you are passionate about. Maybe it's social justice, alleviating hunger, or reducing violence. While many of us may feel unqualified to inspire change, we all carry a wealth of ideas and experiences, which when shared as stories can have a huge impact. A hallmark of our species has always been our ability to communicate ideas. From the campfires of our ancestors to the social media forums we use today, we are storytellers at heart. Share your story. Thank you.